Canada's finances, well, they're not looking good. With an expected fall economic statement, more like a winter economic statement coming in just a week's time, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland really isn't giving us a lot of information on just how bad the deficit is. Hello, I'm Adrienne. With me are Lorrie Goldstein and Warren Kinsella. This is going to be a winter economic statement, Warren, where we have a very weak finance minister with a very weak Liberal government and massive spending, massive amounts of economic turmoil moving forward in Canada. And it's very uncomfortable for all of us knowing with the cost of inflation, the rising cost of goods, potential tariffs. Canada's not in a good financial position. And yet we now know that the finance minister and the prime minister's office are really at odds with what we should do economically.
Yeah, it's been reported on the pages of one of our competitor newspapers that it is more or less open warfare between the office of the Prime Minister and the office of the Minister of Finance. It has been a difficult relationship going back months. Back in the summertime, everybody may recall, there were stories that came out where Trudeau was saying, Freeland is not a good communicator. I'm going to bring in Mark Carney, who's going to give us kind of a macro sense where the economy should be. I thought she should quit back then, and I said so, when we got together to discuss it. I do not understand why she's sticking around now. The one thing I know from Ottawa, from the days when I worked for Chrystia, it is critical that the Minister of Finance has and is seen to have the support of the Prime Minister. Because, when you're Minister of Finance, you're Dr. No. You've got all the ministries coming to you with their dreams and their hopes and their plans with price tags attached to them. And you have to be able to say no and prevent them from doing a detour and going off to the Prime Minister's office. Well, that's not happening. So we understand from the reporting that's happened this week that she is unhappy about the GST break for the Christmas period, which has produced no results for the Liberal Party. So she was right about that. She is unhappy about the deficit target. Our own Brian Lilly has reported that it could be as much as $62 million, which is just extraordinary, when you compare it to the days of Martin and Chrystia and Harper. So there has really been a breakdown in the relationship between the two of them. And I don't understand how she can stick around. He has really humiliated her in public, but it's symptomatic of how he is. If you're a woman, if you're a member of cabinet, if you're a Liberal, if you're strong, and if you say no to this Prime Minister, he will cut the legs out from under you. And Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott and so many others can testify to the same thing. This guy is prepared to do whatever it takes, however fiscally irresponsible it is,
that's right,
to move the needle, but it's not moving the needle.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be moving any, it's not moving any support towards the Liberals, Lorrie, this big GST break that he's announced and the $250 checks. It's probably reasonable that the Finance Minister of Canada is not happy about these sorts of things because they are big ticket spending items. She probably wasn't happy about so many of the things that they capitulated to the NDP for their ongoing support, including the extraordinarily expensive dental plan. I think that that's good in a sense, even though Freeland hasn't been a very strong finance minister. We know that everything is ostensibly being dictated at the PMO anyway, the Prime Minister's office. But I'm wondering, reportedly, anywhere between a $40 billion to up towards $62 billion deficit. So, it's a big gap there. It's a big delta. But that's as high as it can go, over $60 billion. That's terrifying economically.
Well, today's editorial is on that issue, that 8 months ago, in the 2024 budget, which is a fiscal year, she said that the government's fiscal anchor policy was based on three things. Two of them had to do with the debt to GDP ratio. One of them was about the deficit. And it was that for 23-24, the fiscal year that had just passed, the deficit would be no higher than $40.1 billion. And then if you went to the budget documents, you saw that, okay, their plan is for it to be 40.1 and then to keep going down, right? Well, then the parliamentary budget officer, Yves Giroux, last month, looked at the numbers and he went, I think they've already blown past 40 point. Now, he said it was going to be somewhere around 46.8 or something like a billion. Look, for Canadians, 5 billion one means nothing. But what was significant was the media in Ottawa said, they went to Freeland and said, okay, the parliamentary budget officer, who's the independent, nonpartisan officer of parliament that watches the public's money, says you've already gone past 40 billion. So what's it going to be in your statement on Monday? And she wouldn't answer. She just wouldn't answer. Okay, if you don't answer a question about will it be higher than 40.1 billion, it's a safe bet that it's probably bigger than 40.1 billion. How high it goes, we don't know. But that dovetails into the relationship between, or non-relationship between Trudeau and the finance minister. To me, when I saw the picture out of Mar-a-Lago of Trump and Trudeau, first thing, where's the deputy prime minister and finance minister?
That's right.
We're talking about tariffs, and also the finance minister who was instrumental in negotiating the last free trade deal. And to me, that is, I do have some sympathy for Freeland. I have a lot of criticism about how she's run that ministry, but you can't be effective when the boss is constantly humiliating you in public. And she's taken it a number of times. She supported him a number of times, but there comes a point where the legitimate concern is not that he's humiliating her, because he, as Warren said, any strong woman crosses him, gone. The problem is she can't do her job. It's very hard for her. You imagine what happens. Some of these ideas to spend money, tax holiday, whatever the heck it is, she's Dr. No. They come to her and she says no. So they go to the PMO and she gets reversed. That's what happened to Bill Morneau. I mean, to me, we're in an early Bill Morneau stage here, where there are damaging leaks about they haven't communicated it properly. I'm not sure how you could communicate a lot of this stuff properly in the current political environment. And at the end of the day, I'm always like, and I know, when a prime minister's in trouble, very early on comes, he's being advised in poorly. And I've no doubt, as Warren says, that he's being isolated. But it's his job to break out of that isolation.
Yeah. I want to pick up on that.
Yeah,
I want to pick up on that, Warren, because Lorrie brings up the Mar-a-Lago photo. And again, we all said, credit to him, he went down there to meet face to face. When you have disagreements, you have a discussion about it. But there was someone, it may not have been the deputy prime minister and the finance minister at that table, but there was a strong woman at that table from the Trudeau side of the aisle, Katie Telford, his chief of staff. She was there with him down in Mar-a-Lago. And I'm wondering, to pick up on what Lorrie was saying with respect to Trudeau being so isolated and insulated, is it the staff that is, really bubble wrapping him? We saw it happen with President Joe Biden to a degree. Is Trudeau's staff not showing him that Canadians don't want a GST break? They want you gone. They don't want the $250 checks. They think it's crass. All these things that Freeland is opposed to, Trudeau seems to want to really ram through. But who's telling him this?
Katie Telford. Katie Telford is doing what they did with Assad and Ceausescu, and all of these people who overstay their welcome. She is, I am told by my sources, shielding him from the reality of the numbers. She is keeping caucus away from him, keeping cabinet away from him, and not telling him what the true state of the numbers are. Now, he is always, as Brian Lilly and I and Lorrie have written, he's always been the Instagram prime minister. You know, he's much more interested in the visual element than the hard facts. His record on the economy shows that. So he has a tendency not to look at bad news anyway. You know, the sunny ways stuff, for him, it's true. That's what he's done, is he's just stayed away from coverage from, you know, our paper and others. But at a moment like this, when he's, according to Angus Reid at Amicus, this week, 23 points behind Pierre Poilievre. What that means, the only place where Poilievre doesn't really have traction is Quebec. That means the Liberal Party of Canada, outside of the province of Quebec, is potentially running in fourth place, where they are going to be reduced to a rump in the House of Commons and are going to be out of power for maybe 15 years. It is the responsibility of a political assistant, and I used to be one. I remember Chrystia got mad at me once. Maybe I'll finish with this anecdote. Chrystia, you know, I was trying to make the best case scenario for a problem. I can't remember what the problem was. And he got mad at me. And he said, I did not hire you to tell me yes. I hired you when the answer is no, and you have to tell me the answer is no, don't do it. She is not doing that. She is hiding him from the reality, which is the country is turned away from him. His caucus have no faith in him, and cabinet are very concerned, quite a few of them, about their future, to the point where I'm also hearing from my sources, Chrystia Freeland has had it. She is going to leave. She's got a book coming out, you know, some kind of memoir think piece book. I don't know who's going to buy it. And then she's going to pack it in. She is not going to run again in Toronto. So I think, you know, a lot of them decided he's not going to change. This is how he's going to be right to the end. And it's going to be a Kathleen Wynne scenario where the Liberal Party basically federally, the once most successful political machine in Western democracy, gets reduced to a rump in the House of Commons. And the person to blame for that, along with Justin Trudeau, is Katie Telford.
Well, last word to you, Lorrie, and picking up on that final point. Look, Chrystia Freeland has said some pretty asinine things as of recently. Canada should have we're feeling a vibe session. No one knows what the heck that even means. But she said it. And in her mind seemed to believe that vibe session. Canada has a massive issue with high interest rates, high cost of inflation, high cost of goods, all of these issues that, you know, just tossed a US president out of office, or his party out of office, because Americans weren't feeling the Bidenomics that Kamala Harris was trying to sell. It's a similar sort of narrative here. But, you know, we see the 23-point gap in the polls. But Freeland's going to come and stand before Canadians and give this fall economic statement / winter economic statement on Monday. It's not going to be good. It's going to be ugly, and it's going to leave a massive financial mess for likely the next government, the Poilievre government, to clean up. But last word on this, Lorrie, as far as the finances go, there's not a lot of good news here. So to the communications problem with the Liberals, how are you going to sell it?
Yeah, the vibe session one in particular.
It was so ridiculous.
It was telling Canadians, don't believe your eyes and ears about the experience of your life right now. Things are actually very good. That's what she's saying. You know, our finances are better than the G7, and economy continues to yada. We don't live in other G7 countries. We live here. And Canadians know that things are much more unaffordable here than they were, well, to start with, pre-pandemic. And that's not unusual. That happened all over the world. But when your answer is, well, basically, Canadians are panicking over nothing. That's what you are saying. When food bank use is at record levels, when, you know, businesses still suffering from the pandemic are folding, when people are losing their jobs, and you say, well, you know, really, no, you don't ultimately it's you don't understand the economic realities. What a ridiculous thing to say. And going forward, the one concern I have is that the Liberals could be in power for until October of 2025. That's like 9 months. One old trick of a party that knows it's going down is to promise people the moon as it's going down. In other words, wait till not this year's budget, wait till next year's budget if they're still there. And the trick is they do that because when they're defeated, then they come back in question period and say, we were about to do this. We were about to do that. You know, a couple elections ago, it was, we were about to fix the climate. And you guys, you know, you guys like, and so I'm worried about what the numbers are going to, how bad it's going to be going on, because if all you've got is distraction as opposed to reality, then, you know, well, then go hog in. The deficit's 40 billion, 60 billion. Why not make it 100 billion?
Yeah.
It means nothing. So,
right.
Yeah, to me, it's that ultimately we need an election.
Mhm.
That would deal with a lot of this. It would deal with the public anger. It would deal with, okay, this person is our leader, right? Not this person is our leader until we can get rid of him and put in somebody else. But of course, you know, the Liberals and the NDP don't want an election because they'll probably be obliterated. So we're kind of in this holding pattern. And you're right, it's exactly like Biden, right down to, as Warren said, being insulated by your senior staff from reality. When we saw Biden in that first debate with Trump, I remember I was sitting watching it and I was like, oh my God, they've misled us for months and months that he was in good health, right? In a different way, as Warren says, I think it's the same thing with our prime minister. He's out of it.
That's right. Well, Chrystia Freeland, that nearly $62 billion deficit you're about to report is not a vibe session. Well, let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And go to the TorontoSun.com. You'll find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.